So I'm going to get us started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for What Keeps You Up at Night? Entrepreneurship During Challenging Times. My name is Colin Weston. I am one of our three co-hosts for our show, and I'm the community leader for Startup Vancouver, which is one of over 40 chapters of Startup Canada across the country. And as the sign says behind me here, our purpose is to connect entrepreneurs and organizations to each other, to events, to resources and tools, both locally, regionally, and nationally. We're really pleased that our show here, this is our 27th episode, is now has a national reach, and we make sure that we have entrepreneurs from all over the country and people, influencers that support our innovation ecosystem also. So with that, I am going to quickly share my screen here before we get started, and I'll introduce our three guests here. So hang on a second. All right. I always ask Reza to make sure that that the screen there is being shown.
Yep.
There we go. Okay. So today our three guests are Nicole McLaren, who is the founder and CEO of Raven Reads Books. And I was just on the Canadian Export Challenge, what we did with Startup Canada with Nicole, and she was one of the thought leaders on that. So really excited to hear the conversation that Maryam's going to be having with her today, and Shelley Kuipers, who is the co-founder and co-CEO of the 51. And I'm just going to hold off to tell you what the 51 is here in a second. And then our good friend Vivian Chan also is the co-chair of Vancouver Startup Week, which we are very pleased and proud to be collaborating with next week for the third year in a row. So the fact that they've made the virtual event transition, that Vivian's going to be telling us what's keeping her and her team up all night. And they're pretty close to pulling all-nighters right now. So they have been staying up here. So as we always do when we start, how's everybody doing? Is everybody hanging in there? The COVID isn't going away anytime soon. We got to weather this storm together and do the best we can. So I'm hoping that you're all making sure to stay engaged, to stay active, taking care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and being engaged, as I said. And that is really the reason why we created this show, is to make sure that we all have this place now once a week where we can meet, not only to actually be inspired and to learn, but also to keep it a little bit light. The fact everything's so heavy these days that we definitely do our best to add a little bit of fun and levity to what we do here. With Startup Vancouver, best way to get a hold of us is through social media, whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, on Instagram. We are very active there with all the events that we create and all the other ones that we promote, like with our friends at Vancouver Startup Week that we'll be talking about. We're also very active with our new YouTube channel. So every single episode, including this one that we're recording today, if you liked it, if you thought it was nice and you want to listen to it or watch it twice, please go there. And while you're there, as the YouTubers say, please subscribe and help us build up our community there. And if you like what you see, leave a comment and also click that like button. This is meant to be an interactive show. So all of our attendees on Zoom and also on Facebook Live, because we're going there too, please in chat and also in comments, you have any questions for our guests after we have about the 10 to 12 minute interview with them, we want to hear from you. So please, let's make this as interactive as we possibly can. We're also very proud to have an organization called Jack.org as our charity partner. And Jack.org is the only organization in Canada that supports mental health advocacy from the grassroots level. So they actually have in schools and universities the students as the ambassadors and the advocates to raise mental health awareness. And we do the same in the entrepreneurship space also. So far we've managed to raise $500. And every time that we get a donation on the show, and we have one today, at the end of the show, I do my musical shout out. So this will be no exception. So if you want to stick around and hear me sing, maybe you want to leave before that, but just give you a fair warning, that will happen at the end of the show. My co-hosts, who I'm good friends with, Reza and Maryam Mobini, they will be joining us today also, as they always do on Tuesday. And today, very quickly, just to let you know, just to reiterate, so Maryam will be speaking with Nicole, who, as I mentioned, is the founder of Raven Reads Books. And then after that conversation with Vivian Chan, who's the co-chair of Vancouver Startup Week, and Reza will be speaking with Vivian there. And then I will have the pleasure of speaking with Shelley, who I just met a couple weeks ago and learning about the 51. And that refers to the fact that 51% of the world's population, of Canada's population, are women. And we'll be talking about the fact that 51% of financing and resources do not go to women entrepreneurs. In fact, it's abysmally low. And we'll be talking about the numbers with Shelley and positively how we are changing that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I am going to hand it over to my good friend Maryam to get us started with a conversation with Nicole.
Thanks so much, Colin. Hi, Nicole. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you. Just wanted to tell everyone, so our segment is totally unfiltered and unedited. Feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat, as Nicole and I are going to be conversing and learning more about her. I love the design of your boxes and your company. And if you could please tell our audience a little bit about how did this idea came to you, and where, how did you get started?
Thank you. So Raven Reads really started all about awareness building and building relationships. And I had worked in a corporate setting for years, and I was working as a policy analyst helping a company design their reconciliation efforts. And I really wanted to do something myself, and just to say that I could play a role in this. So I started a book club where we focused on books written by Indigenous authors. And I started to see how well reading books really could communicate a lot of societal issues that we see today. And it really helped non-Indigenous people start to really piece things together through just reading even a fictional novel. So I came across the concept of a subscription revenue model and the idea of a subscription box. And I thought it'd be a great platform to share Indigenous literature with Canadians and marry that with other items that I could purchase from Indigenous entrepreneurs. So in 2017, we launched, and it's taken off from there.
Thank you. And I'm wondering, what have you observed being some of the positive interactions that have came out of your initiative? Any stories that you could share from, for example, Indigenous community and a non-Indigenous community?
I think one of the biggest things, and it really started during one of our book club meetings, and I've seen it through conversation with our subscribers, as well as we have an online book club as well for subscribers, was through certain stories they were reading in our books, they were able to make the connection around intergenerational trauma. And people could really start to kind of connect what happened in the past and how that still has implications for what you see today. And that's often really hard for Canadians to make that connection of why we need to discuss something that happened 100 years ago if it's long gone. And I've just seen that connection being made with a lot of our subscribers and people that are part of our online community.
And what's so beautiful about what you're doing is creating a container, a space for giving voice to people to come talk about their traumas that they may have not spoken about to others or not feel safe. And when you're talking about your online community, can you tell me, is there a place that people who are reading, the subscribers that are reading the books, can come talk to Indigenous people about, for example, the traumas? Or is there like a discourse? Is there a conversation happening online right now?
We don't necessarily provide this space for that kind of conversation, but we certainly help connect people with other resources that are out there so they could have that conversation.
Yeah, I think it's really great, and I'm wondering, what does reconciliation mean to you and look like to you?
Hmm. I've always said that to reach reconciliation, it requires some action, but we cannot expect people to change or take action without some understanding. And I think it's through storytelling that people can begin to see why some action may be required, and they can feel more equipped with that knowledge and feel more comfortable. I think people feel not as informed, and so they feel reluctant, and they're going to push back when they're being told they need to do things differently. So I think with that knowledge and that awareness, that can drive people to want to take action, and then eventually you can start discussing things around reconciliation.
So true. And 2020 has been the year of justice and unmasking. And what what have been some of the challenges that your company yourself has faced this year?
So certainly COVID has been an excellent test of the strength of our supply chain. And so being a consumer goods business, uh, it's definitely helped us um, ensure that our supply chain is diverse enough and strong enough moving forward. And it's also helped us better understand the nuances of our cash flow and timing that appropriately with when we need to be purchasing goods and supplies from the beginning, and then also making sure it gets to our customers. So I've really appreciated this year because it's really helped me test possible weak points and ensure that we're much stronger going into 2021.
So have you made any pivots or in your business?
We've actually been working on a lot of growth and a lot of new product development. So we actually have a lot going on in the background, and so I'm thankful. It timed quite well for me because we were potentially looking at introducing a product that would be targeting the travel industry in the US. So I thank our lucky stars that things timed well, that we hadn't quite advanced into that, but it allowed us to almost have the time to reevaluate and really be prepared to take advantage of us coming out of the gate as things start to get a bit better, hopefully.
Thank you. And I'm just going to open it up to our panelists and my wonderful co-hosts to see if there are any questions or if they have any questions from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna jump in. I'm looking at your website, and it's very clean. It's very straightforward. I like the whole idea of subscription models and the boxes. I'm curious to know, what did you learn throughout implementing a subscription box model versus the traditional model? Are you seeing people, opt into it more and they're engaging more, or is it more challenging?
Yeah, so a subscription revenue model generally can be quite more attractive because you can have that predictability of a revenue stream, right? So I can look, excuse me, I can look 3-6 months out and at least have a bit of a baseline of what my sales will look like and exactly when that cash is going to come in. It certainly has had its challenges in terms of ensuring we've got the right software and the right technology behind everything. We also have limitations when it comes to shipping options in Canada. So that's been more of the challenge, is synchronizing our processes and our workflows with what's available and what we're willing to pay for at this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with the entire model, and I find it very challenging. There are a lot of components that need to go right. It seems from outside, oh my God, subscription, it's going to be a lot more profitable, but there are so many things along the way, from the churn rate to keeping them engaged to the shipping, and then it's constant, right? You have to constantly ship the same or boxes to the same customer. So it can have its own challenges. That's why I wanted you to share. So thank you.
Yeah.
Let everybody else jump in.
Yeah, I had a couple questions for Nicole. You and I have known each other for a while now. I had the pleasure of hearing your story about a year ago during our Van Startup Stories speaker series event celebrating Indigenous entrepreneurs. And and also seeing you last week again, as I mentioned, at the Canadian Export Challenge. Uh, for Indigenous entrepreneurs, could you please speak to that as far as the opportunities? Let's say if there's people out there watching today that that are Indigenous entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't know where to turn. Could you talk about some of the resources that are out there, whether it's through First Nations Technology Council and through other groups? I know you took the TEC program that helped propel you forward internationally. Perhaps you can touch on some of those things, and maybe also mention some of the things that didn't work or you find frustrations. You know, go for it. Be unfiltered here. As things that you're frustrated with, and things that also you're really pleased that worked to help entrepreneurs to get started.
Sure. So there's a lot there I could share. So certainly in terms of wanting to be an entrepreneur, I think Indigenous people inherently come from generations of enterprising peoples that can take advantage of opportunity out there. So I think we're just genetically built to be entrepreneurs, in my opinion. And I certainly draw that strength from my Métis ancestry and our participation in the fur trade and such. With that being said, I think we tend to become a bit pigeonholed in certain industries. And my biggest kind of call to action to other entrepreneurs is to really look at where there's other opportunities and think a lot bigger than we tend to. We tend to stay in that kind of consumer product space, especially as women. We tend to sit over here, and a lot of men tend to kind of go over here into certain industries. And as a business that looks to embed Indigenous entrepreneurs throughout our supply chain, I want to see us more present in other areas of the supply chain. And so I think there's tons of opportunities, and we just need to be kind of understanding the supply chain and what's out there, and really kind of take hold of some of those opportunities. In terms of resources, there's so many out there. Like, so when I first started, I certainly had a lot of assistance from Small Business BC, Startup Canada, as well as a lot of export navigator programs that are out there right now. And certainly networking can be your best bet right out of the gate to understand what's out there for resources. So we can be geographically separated from a lot of the opportunities, especially as Indigenous people. We tend to be up north, not so much in the cities. And so the more you can be finding other entrepreneurs and asking people, have you tried this? What were some of the barriers? What were some of the challenges? And doing that as much as you can, I think, is just the best starting point.
Great, and thanks for that. And I do know that with our friends at Futurepreneur, Futurepreneur actually now has expanded their portfolio of not just young entrepreneurs, but also with people there that are helping to facilitate the success of Indigenous entrepreneurship, especially in rural communities. And on that note, in 2 months' time, as part of our Cannes Startup Story Speaker event, we are virtually going to be showcasing Indigenous entrepreneurs again. So we're going to be doing that in a couple months, and Futurepreneur is going to be partnering with us on that. I'd love to hear, of course, we don't want to do too much of a reveal with Shelley and everything that she's spearheading with the 51, but Shelley, maybe you can jump in and quickly just mention, are you working at all with women Indigenous entrepreneurs with the 51?
Yeah, absolutely. And Nicole, I've been making notes. I need to get you on the 51 Instagram TV show. So I'm going to ping you about that. But your story and your mission is awesome. And I had some questions. One of them would be, what has been the growth that you've seen with Indigenous entrepreneurship since you've got started? You must be seeing massive growth, because so many more people are becoming entrepreneurs, and the playing field is gradually being leveled out. What kind of growth have you seen on your side?
Mm-hmm. Certainly lots of growth, and I think also just rapidly increasing awareness of existing businesses.
Yeah.
And so I joined these because of COVID. A friend of mine started these amazing Sunday phone calls, and we invite other Indigenous women entrepreneurs to these calls. And we now have like this massive list of women who've been entrepreneurs for years, but they just haven't, like entrepreneur you can be pretty isolated. Yeah. So I think it's more just a huge increasing awareness of what's out there. But I know just from my other work on the side, helping Indigenous women, the trajectory is quite steep in terms of women getting into that business.
Yeah, absolutely. The 51 has funded Bobby Reset, who's the founder and CEO of Virtual Gurus, which is a community of virtual assistants, administrators, and that business is growing. Like it's faring really well. It's kind of thriving during COVID, but Bobby is kind of our Indigenous entrepreneur that has really broken down so many molds or so many preconceptions about what she should be doing in her business. Like she's not CPG, she's technology. She's just launched her Ask Betty app, which sits inside of Slack. She's LGBTQ, Indigenous. She worked in oil and gas, was laid off, couldn't find a job, so created a business so that she could have a job, a living wage. And so Virtual Gurus is a great example, I think, of what Indigenous women are doing in Canada. And we were like super proud to be a financing partner of hers.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Bobby at the Startup Canada Awards last year. Bobby was a winner there. Nicole, I know you've also won a Startup Canada Award also with all the fine work that you're doing in the entrepreneurship space. And we're just getting started with the work that we're doing to elevate the success of Indigenous entrepreneurs. So anything that we can do with these events we do through Startup Vancouver and also, of course, nationally through Startup Canada, we're here to help and do the best that we possibly can. And to be honest, we just need to listen more also and get First Nations community here locally and also nationally involved and integrated in so the level of engagement goes up. So Nicole, having you tell your story again here today, it just helps every single time just to raise awareness and the value that you bring to what we do. So thank you for that. And Maryam, thank you for the interview there. And now I want to hand it over to Reza, who is going to have a conversation with Vivian and all the good things that are going to happen next week at Vancouver Startup Week.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Colin and Vivian. Great meeting you here. Thank you for being on our show. I have lots of questions. I don't know where to even start.
We only have 15 minutes, Reza.
I know. We have
a cutoff time.
Got to be efficient. So Vivian, let's start off with your background. You're part of so many different organizations, and you're working at Yale Consulting, I believe.
Yale Canada.
Yeah. And you're the exactly type of person that anybody who is in startup, they need to know you because you're the great connection. You're part of Vancouver. You're part of Futurepreneur. You're part of Vancouver Startup Week. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I landed in this community, 10, 11 years ago. That makes me sound really old. But I started working at an accelerator. It was one of the very first ones in Canada. So I got thrown into the world of programming and events and conferences and community and all things startup and entrepreneur, which was amazing because I got to work with everyone across Canada. The hard part with that job is being, one of the first accelerators is no one's done the job before you. So it's a lot of learning on the spot, a lot of phone calls and messages to anyone and everyone, and then taking that information and trying to figure out what my job actually is. It was definitely one of those jobs where you feel like you do everything, which is good because you learn way more than, the average person does in a I wanted to say 9 to 5, but that's not true. It was like a 9 to 4 a.m. type thing. But it was great. When we shut down a few years ago, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do just because I felt like I knew a little bit of everything, but not enough of one thing, which I think is what a lot of people struggle with. So I decided to start my own consulting business. And it was really just my excuse to keep working with everyone, to be honest. I no longer felt comfortable only working with one company. I was so used to working with so many because in my role, you actually feel like you are a part of everyone's startup. So I couldn't imagine going from, working with 100 plus every day to working for only one. So I ended up doing that, ended up doing a lot of contracts with, interestingly enough, a lot of people that I used to kind of work with, but on a partnership level. And now I was actually on their team. So I worked with the Super Cluster, New Ventures BC. I worked with Lighthouse Labs to launch DevHub, Ace Tech, BC Tech, pretty much everyone I used to talk to every day. But now I had an email address with their company name on it, which was really nice. Myself and Caddy were co-chairs of Vancouver Startup Week. I got involved in that 7 years ago, which was the very first year. Went to a debrief lunch with them after that, and they said, look around the table, this is your team. And I went, I thought I signed up for lunch. I didn't know I signed up to be on the team, but okay. So I've been doing that. Been co-chair with them since 2017. Again, my excuse to just have that annual check-in and hi and I miss you and I love you conversation with everyone I possibly know across Canada. But my newest thing is I'm one of the operations managers at Yale Canada, which I love because it's a charity organization that trains high school students about entrepreneurship. So we don't say, you need to be an entrepreneur, but it's the skills and the knowledge of it that will help you regardless of what job or post-secondary path that you go into. So they're in grade 10 to 12. They're, 16 keener kids, just want to absorb everything they possibly can. And a lot of them end up actually doing their own business. So it's really interesting because they're learning a lot of the concepts that I used to help teach at an accelerator, but they're 16 and not 26 to 66.
Wow.
So they're definitely ahead of the game, and we bring in a lot of different speakers that share their stories. They actually build a business venture and do a pitch competition, and so they kind of get that whole, what does it mean to work as a team with a mentor, and what is it like to pitch to investors, or even as if it's a board meeting. So they're learning a lot of things before they actually need to do them in real life. So we try to recreate that real life experience for them, but in a somewhat safe zone of still being in that classroom setting. So
I've got to say, I like your energy a lot. You're the perfect person who's a yes person to all the opportunities. You're the type of person that you got involved in all of these opportunities, and now you're part of New Venture BC, Yale Canada, Vancouver Startup Week, your own consulting. There's so many things happening. That's a true entrepreneurial approach to getting involved in the community. I very much like that. Tell us a little bit about Vancouver Startup Week, because it's coming right around the corner.
It is coming up.
Yeah, and people want to know more.
Yeah, so we are in our 7th year of Vancouver Startup Week. Every year we run a week-long, I wouldn't say it's a conference, it's not your traditional conference. We basically build a week-long event. And under that umbrella, there is usually about 120 events because, like, to your point, we have trouble saying no to everyone. So anyone that we can fit in, we make sure we include them. It's always been the mandate of it's built by the community for the community. So although I'm co-chair of an organizing team, a lot of things we do are kind of behind the scenes because we actually coordinate with members of the community to throw different events. So for example, Startup Vancouver has a session within Startup Week. We have everything from panel events and fireside chats to hands-on workshops. We throw parties and networking events. We do investor showcases where we actually hand select companies that are looking to raise money. We put them in front of investors and they get to do that one-on-one meeting. So it's a little bit of everything. I know it's called Startup Week, but it's definitely more than startups. We have everyone from students to early stage founders to companies that have been around for 10, 20 years. We have business providers, we have community supporters. So it's anyone and everyone that you should meet, all coming together in 1 week.
Now, before I ask how is it different this year, I also want to know, is it too late for people to apply?
It's too late to throw an event because we've run out of time slots, but it's definitely not too late to register for the event. This year, it's completely free. It's by donation. In the past, we've charged one fee that gets you all access to everything that you could possibly go to. It's hard to go to everything because unless you can clone yourself, I'd love to know how, because that's something I need. But this year, because of everything that's going on, we really just wanted to make it very accessible to anyone, including those outside of Vancouver. So commuting or traveling is no longer an issue. You can just wake up, turn on your computer, and you're good to go. So we have made it completely free for anyone who wants to attend to do so.
Amazing. And I want to wrap it up by saying, what keeps you up at night, Vivian? You're part of all these exciting stuff. What's the future for you? Where is your mind?
Yeah, I would say, what doesn't keep me up at night? I would say a couple of things. On the Startup Week side, with everything going on, we've had to change the format completely. In the past, we have held Startup Week at different venues across town. And it's kind of almost like a community crawl. You get to attend workshops in, a community center or an office or a co-working space. And while you're there, you get to learn about that business. That unfortunately is completely off the table. That's not happening. We had to move everything online to Hop-In, which is something we've never done before. So we're doing our best to make sure, we're prepared and everything is set up, but I'm a control freak. You can ask most people that know me. I need to know everything that's going on and come up with 10 different backup plans. And it's scary when, should internet die, there is nothing I can do about that. And that's horrifying to me. Like, we're the team that shows up to venues with multiple projectors in suitcases because, and extra extension cords and clickers and all of this stuff. And to not be able to walk into your living room and fix your computer for you is horrifying to me. So that's definitely one big thing that's keeping me up at night. On the Yale side, with the schools opening up again, that's been really difficult for us, is how do we run a program that used to be in person in classrooms and have all the mentors and speakers go virtually. It's a completely different experience, especially for students. It is, very important for them to have that face-to-face interaction, but you never know what's going to happen. And we went through that in the spring where they all came back from spring break and couldn't go into their schools. So we're preparing for, obviously knock on wood that doesn't happen, but should it happen, coming up with all those ideas of how do we recreate that full year program that students, feel engaged and still want to participate, because it is a great program, great class. And, I think we're lucky. A lot of our students and teachers are so good and they love it so much that they always find some way to participate and to stay engaged. But COVID itself is what keeps me up at night.
Yeah, and this might relieve you a little. I think you're not the only one going through this.
Yes, exactly.
UBC is going through this, the big institution, all of these big, events and an institution for education, they're going through this. A lot of people don't like the online aspect of things, and everybody's striving to see how they can improve the experience for everyone. And just the fact that you keep thinking about it, I'm sure next week is going to be wonderful. I'm looking forward to it. I'll let Colin tell us a little bit about the collaboration we're going to do.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited for the third year in a row now that Startup Vancouver is collaborating with an event with Vancouver Startup Week. And as you mentioned, and Vivian, you touched on that next week. So our Tuesday show next week, a little bit different. We're starting at 12:30 to so that fits into your schedule there. So 12:30 to 1:30 Pacific time. And that will be through on Hopin rather than on Zoom. So we'll make it nice and easy for people to register and do all that. I already have. If I can do it, you can do it. So it's all good. I'm the guinea pig. I managed
You're
to do
the
it.
guinea pig. You're the bar.
And that bar is pretty low, but so there we go. So I will have to say here, Vivian, I've known you for a couple of years now, even knowing about you for a couple of years before that. And you inspire me as an innovation community builder. You lead the way and I just try to keep up.
Oh, thank you.
You've set a tremendous kind of precedent. And I'm being very honest when I say this. I kind of watch what you do, and a lot of stuff is like, I'm going to do that, and that, because that's what Vivian does, and it seems to work. So, so thank you for continuing to do that, and your energy level is so high. See, I don't even need my coffee here today. I can just feed off
just
your,
me. Yeah,
your energy.
I'll bottle me up and sell that or something.
There you go. There you go.
That's the entrepreneurship spirit right there.
You got that right. So, hey, I know that with our audience, we have a very shy audience today, both on Facebook and also on Zoom. No one's asking
on Facebook, we've got Rodrigo. He's saying it's the famous plug and pray. I think he's referring to, you know, hoping everybody's gonna come through and no internet will be shut down.
There we go. There we go. I know we got Michael here on chat here. He always has some insights. Michael, if you're feeling something, let us know and we'll read it or ask the question. I wanted to open it up to our to Maryam and also to our other to Shelley and Nicole. If you had any questions here for Vivian, or I can keep on yapping away here all day long. It's kind of what I do, but I want to open it up to some others here.
I don't have any question at this time. It might come, but I'm just really enjoying this. You made me laugh so much.
You know where to find me, so.
Right. So Colin, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, Vivian, I'm going to put you on the spot here with Nicole being on the show here today. What efforts, both with Yell and also with Vancouver Startup Week, are you doing, have you done, and are you doing to engage Indigenous First Nations entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so Futurepreneur is actually one of our biggest supporters and partners. We love them and we love working with them every year. So this year, they're doing a series of events that are a little bit different, a little bit more unique, and for them, an opportunity to also showcase a lot of their partners and companies that they work with. So we do have one on the Monday morning, and Joanne Norris from Futurepreneur is leading that session, and it's about investing in Indigenous entrepreneurship. So it's all the things that they have learned through the years, and all the different opportunities that are now currently available, and what they kind of see are coming down the pipeline. So it's a really good session for people to learn about it, and also for Indigenous entrepreneurs, it'll be kind of like a one-stop shop for them in terms of that session. So they'll cover all the bases there, and I believe they're bringing in some of their entrepreneurs as well to share their stories. So it'll be a fun panel event, something that we haven't done in the past. So we're pretty excited that we have the opportunity to do that. And then same on the Yell side, you know, I've been with them for a year now, myself and Caddy. So we've learned a lot about how to bring in cool speakers and kind of the different industries and different types of entrepreneurs that we want to highlight. So Nicole, this is an FYI for you. I will be messaging you right after this call.
Sounds good. I'll be here.
Good stuff. I see.
Questions.
Vivian, how many, so I noted that you said that you've been with Vancouver Startup Week for 7 years. And so again, I always like to go back to, you know, again, what is the participation of, you know, the population in these events? And so what have you seen has been the change of, you know, women participating in Startup Vancouver over these 7 years?
Yeah, I would say the first year, we all just kind of jumped on board. There wasn't really an organizing team behind it that had one giant calendar where you could see everything. So it was more just, hey, everyone, if you've got an event, just make sure it's that week. So it's definitely less coordinated. Over the years, we've tried to make more sessions very different than the usual ones that we would get, you know, at the Lunch and Learn as an example. So everything from even just having wellness and, you know, fitness trainers and entrepreneurs doing sessions that are a little bit more get up off your chair and get moving. You know, we've had, one year it was Female Friday, where every single event on that Friday had to have a focus on women entrepreneurs or women investors. Coordinating that was sometimes a little bit of a headache because some people are like, we're not free on the Friday, what do we do? So we still try to, you know, have those events. We have a lot of partners who have that focus. So for us, Startup Week team, we don't run too many of the events ourselves because otherwise running 100 is just a nightmare. So we'll do a few ourselves, or we'll kind of plant the seed with some of our partners and have them take the lead. So through, you know, whether it's Futurepreneur or even the Women in Tech team, a lot of their events are focused on that. In the past, we did that investment showcase, which unfortunately this year, because it's virtual, we couldn't really find a good way to engage everyone, but to always make sure that we have those female investors on board and a good mix of entrepreneurs. So we kind of do a little bit of puppeteering in the background. And if something works out really well, we try to make sure that everyone knows about it. So yeah, so again, you know, Shelley, this means I'm going to ask you to do something with us. You know, that's what it's going to mean.
Sure. We'd love to. No, that would be awesome.
No, love that. I did have one comment from Bart on chat here. He said, do any of you or speakers here have any insights into the office environments and what that looks like moving forward? So I guess you can comment as far as entrepreneurs you've talked to and early growth businesses, and also for your own efforts here of what you're doing, I guess, with Raven Reads Books, and of course Vancouver Startup Week, and of course the 51. So any one of you want to jump in and answer Bart's question on that?
Yeah, one of our events is actually hosted by Tech Spaces YVR, which is under the CBRE group. So they'll be actually hosting a session on that specifically, because we know that's obviously a top of mind topic right now. So so check that one out. They're the go-tos for me, anything regarding office.
I can also chime in. I'm working on a project actually in Saskatchewan to open up a new co-working facility exclusively for Indigenous women entrepreneurs. And obviously we've been talking to some potential investors, and they've asked, well, with COVID, how are you going to potentially fill, you know, like a crammed communal co-working space? And I came across a really interesting article that was talking about the future of office space and how co-working spaces may actually be able to kind of come in and save existing corporations to be able to provide space, because they're going to have to be spacing out their employees so much more. And so it may be a more cost-effective option for some of those companies to look at utilizing co-working spaces as a potential option to place their existing employees as just one option to be able to space people out and not pay the expensive rent of buying more office space.
There you go. Thanks for that. So unless there's one more question here, I'll just put it out there to everybody here that's a panelist here today. Otherwise, I'm going to jump on over and have a conversation with Shelley. So before I do, is anybody have another question regarding Vancouver Startup Week or all the good things that Vivian's doing?
Links are in the chat box. Everybody have a look, both on Facebook and here. You can learn more on their website.
There we go. There we go. Thank you, Reza, for that. So I'm now going to have a chat with Shelley Kuipers, who is the co-founder of the co-CEO, I believe, of the 51. And as I mentioned earlier, I was not even aware of the 51 up to a couple of weeks ago. Happened to find it on LinkedIn through some other good events that were going on in the space. And then Shelley and I connected, and here we are. So the 51, as we talked about, is represented the fact that 51% of the world's population is women. And just off of your website here, Shelley, the stats sadly are not getting any better, that women only receive 2.8% of all venture capital, even though what they do with that money, they perform 63% better than their male counterparts. And without me diving down into some of the other things and what your why is, I'll let you talk about that. So you're based out of Calgary, and why don't we just start there, Shelley, to introduce yourself and tell us what you do and why you do it with the 51.
Yeah, well, I think the why is really evident. Women are underinvested in, yet, like you said, you know, they're so efficient with the capital that they do receive. And so on a kind of a per capita basis, you know, they're outperforming their counterparts, which is really cool. So for the 51, we had this thesis that, you know, there's a asset class that's overperforming, but it's underinvested in. And so we looked at it as being a financial opportunity and a social opportunity. So we know that there's a wealth transfer underway for women over the next 10 years. So what are women going to be doing with their money and their capital? And then we also know on the flip side that entrepreneurship, specifically for women, is kind of off the charts. It's the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurship. And that's why I was asking the question of Nicole and Vivian, because you know, we are seeing the statistics every day that are proving out that, you know, women are participating in the economy largely through entrepreneurship activities. I can cite a couple of Alberta statistics. So 30% of tech startups, technology-based companies in Alberta are led by women. That's twice the national average, which is at 15%. We just saw another statistic today for Alberta that for every 100 entrepreneurs in Alberta, 84 are women. So again, there's this massive influx of innovation and entrepreneurship by women, because I think, you know, we're redesigning everything that we see and that we participate in, whether it's how I consume my wellness or my healthcare, or the consumer goods I want to consume, the experiences that I want to have. You know, it could be clean technology, innovation. Women are innovating across all of the sectors. So again, if we go back to the thesis, it's like women largely are not participating as investors, specifically in the venture arena. Yet, you know, the number of women that are taking on the entrepreneurship journey is growing rapidly. And so we thought, why not marry women's capital, women's money with this female entrepreneurship? You know, we've known the guys in the venture space for some time. You know, I've had the opportunity to raise venture capital. I've had the opportunity to invest in companies, but the statistics in kind of the traditional funds aren't changing. They're getting very low participation of women in the actual fund capital, and they're funding very few women. And so 2.8% of venture capital, that is the statistic worldwide, but in Canada it's at 4%. So again, for us, we're going, you know what? There's a huge economic, financial, society opportunity. And so we got started last March, very grassroots. There were 75 women in my kitchen. We put an entrepreneur in the room and we said, tell your story. And she raised $500,000 Canadian from the women in the room that night. So for us, we were like, okay, so we know that the capital isn't flowing to women, but we know women have money. So how do we get that capital activated and flowing? So that's how we got started.
Wow. Well, I was going to ask you what that aha moment, or you find product market fit, and you certainly found it through that particular event. One thing I wanted to ask you is there are a lot of organizations, both provincially, in many provinces, and also nationally, that support women entrepreneurship. It sounds like you found that this gap in the market to really push that forward. Who do you partner with? I'm assuming that you built those partnerships, whether it's a Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, or in British Columbia here, we've got the Women's Enterprise Center. Nationally, there's FWE. I don't know if you know Paulina Cameron yet. I'd be surprised if you didn't. Yep. Good friend of ours and friend of the show, and all the great things they're doing there. So how do you, and women are so much better than men at doing this also, how harnessing that power, that social ability to support each other, how have you found that moving forward to propel yourself since you've launched here with the 51 to really get some traction?
I think it's a great question. We actually launched what we call Canada 51. So again, we're trying to educate the population around, we're 51% of the population, but We launched Canada 51 in May of this year, and it's a national coalition cooperative alliance of female-led capital organizations across Canada, as well as female-led entrepreneur organizations, as well as those that are working kind of in the ecosystem to help build out the infrastructure and the knowledge and the wisdom and experience for us to embark on this space as investors and entrepreneurs. So we launched that with the goal of a few things. What we wanted to be able to do is to build a narrative that allowed us to do both federal and provincial lobbying at the government level. So how could we change policy? How could we activate matching dollars? To create a platform for storytelling. So Nicole talked about storytelling earlier. Like, we believe that, like, if you tell the stories, people can see what they can become. To share investment opportunities for sure. So we've already, we've been doing that kind of organically at the 51 already, but we've just invested in a company called Sampler based out of Toronto, and we partnered with BDC Women in Tech and Stand Up Ventures on that investment. So again, you know, we kind of got together and we said, you know, what's your opportunity for all of us to activate capital for this entrepreneur and the business? And we're just about to close another investment opportunity, actually based in Vancouver, where again, you know, we are collaborating with women that are leading on the female capital side. So yeah, that's kind of, you know, I would say Canada 51 is a really good way, Colin, to talk about how we're not competing in this space. We're saying, okay, if we're only sitting at 4% on female funding, and we know that women aren't, you know, fully participating as an investor in all of this space, we know that there's so much room to grow. So instead of us competing or saying, you know, we can be the only solution, you know, the 51 and other like-minded organizations are going, you know, we all play a role in this and we all have an individual solution, and so we can all level up together.
See, I love the kind of the insights you're providing there. People that know me realize that another hat that I wear is I'm quite heavily involved with the Blue Ocean Strategy business methodology, this notion of rather than competing, you're creating new value here that makes the competition irrelevant. And it really sounds like what you've created with the 51 is a Blue Ocean Strategy play for female entrepreneurs and that investment ecosystem. And it sounds like there's lots of room in that sandbox for you to play in.
Absolutely. And, you know, so when we first got started, it was really grassroots. It was just, you know, we had a network of women that had money, and we knew entrepreneurs that were trying to raise money, and we were just kind of start collaborating and see how we could work together and how we could be, you know, those that were financing this innovation and this ambition that we were seeing. And so initially it was, you know, direct investing. Then we started pooling our money together and going in as a single investment. Then we stood up our fund infrastructure, and we actually just announced our fund infrastructure on September 4th. Yeah, right before Labor Day. And yeah, we've definitely have product market fit, because the demand for participating in our fund has been off the charts. Like, we are just like, wow, okay. So, you know, women and men are signing up for the fund. And so, you know, we had a goal for our fund, and I won't say the number here, but we've achieved, you know, 25% of our fundraise in 2 weeks.
Wow. Wow. I love the fact you said that you are open to men as investors also. And I've talked to a lot of friends of mine that are in that angel investing space, and just say, you know what, women entrepreneurs are just a better bet.
Yeah,
they just
exactly.
are. It's like, you want to de-risk things. And well, you have the stats there already as far as you do more with less money and get less of it. So I wanted to ask you this, because I actually get this comment. I've had this a couple of times over the last year, the fact that we celebrate, whether it's Indigenous entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, LGBTQ entrepreneurs. And I've had a couple of people challenge me and say, why do you do this? And one person actually thought that even celebrating Black entrepreneurs last month, that we were being racist, which I found interesting, and had to kind of pause on that and kind of get them to explain why they felt that way. And I felt the response I had was, well, why do we actually need these type type of events. And my response was, until we can drop the kind of the pronoun or descriptor of women, Indigenous, whatever it is, that we're all entrepreneurs, or the work that I do in the sport tech space, especially in golf, rather than, growing the game for women golfers, is just golfers. And that's it. Saying until we can create this equal footing that all of your stats are 50%, which we're woefully not even close to being at, that we can't do that. So, and we need to actually create these safe spaces. I'm sure you can attest to this, of saying, in order to see one, you've got to be one, whether that's a woman investor or a woman entrepreneur. And that encourages other people to then have that confidence. So I'd like to get your response on that, where people question is like, well, why do we really need these things? I think the answer is self-evident, but I'd love to hear your response to that.
I mean, after a drop off, drop the F-bombs, then I might get into the response to that question. But for me, I just go, like Nicole said it earlier, it's like, we don't see it. Like, these entrepreneurs aren't being seen. And so we have to create a platform for them to be seen. I think that that's the biggest thing. And then, those words will go away. But I didn't know about Raven Reads. I didn't know about that company. So again, it's like, I don't think that women, or 51% of the population, have a platform to communicate their business, because they're building their businesses in different way. And it's very community oriented. It's very grassroots oriented. It's very solution driven. It's very thoughtful. It's less promotional. It's kind of like we do our work, and then our work will speak for ourselves. And so I think the 51 and any other organization is just going, we're just going to show you all the work that's getting done. And so we're providing a platform and a voice for that.
Got it. Love it. We got a few minutes left here. I was going to ask Maryam, do we have any questions in chat? I think we may have one or two.
No, but I just wanted to make a comment that one thing that you're, Shelley, that you're doing that I really love, and it's a personal experience of mine, has been that, it's safer. I feel safer going to women to raise funds than, men, and male investors. It has happened, and I'm sure that a lot of stories that people feel ashamed to talk about it, because there's always that question, that, oh, well, what have you done, but it's like, you go tell the investor, male investor, your ideas and everything, and you think that they're actually interested in the idea and the project that you're working on, and they're pursuing it, and you spend so much time just explaining, pitching the idea, and they're like, oh, we're so close, we're going to invest in this, but turns out they have underlying agenda, and it's not about the business, it's about something else, and it's really soul crushing, and it's something, maybe it's not, I don't know, those voices need to be heard too. And I've experienced that, and it's horrible. So
totally, it is. Yeah, I think every woman has experienced a moment like that in some shape or form.
Yeah, exactly. You try to be really professional as well, right? It's like, well, I'm dressing professionally, doing everything, like being seen in public, yet, and then you get all your team in order for your team to fly from, their city to, from San Francisco here, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, it's not about that, and it's really unfortunate. So I'm sure others have experienced that.
Yeah. So I mean, I completely agree. I think that it's like so many of us have those stories, and like 51 definitely wants to be a safe space for that, for sure.
Yeah, I'm so happy I found out about your organization. Thanks, Colin.
Absolutely. So I see Shelley in chat. You did answer the question that was asked by Brenda Benham, which was, have you partnered with SheEO? And it sounds like you said yes, she's part of Canada 51. So it sounds like you've got a really growing, thriving community that's expanding there with Canada 51.
So this is a very interesting topic, and I know Michael is jumping in with his thoughts, and it's going to go for quite a bit. I just want to make a comment that I was at the conference last year. Kevin O'Leary was in town, and he clearly stated from his own data of the businesses that he invested in, women are clearly outperforming men. He's so biased to spend to invest in women entrepreneurs. The only time, it was funny, he made a joke, the only time he would invest in a male entrepreneur is if in that sector or that idea there is no female version doing that, then he goes for the male. It's very interesting how he was saying the data shows him that they set achievable goals for them and they achieve it, and then they rave their organization and then they go forward. Whereas the male counterpart, they set the bar too high, they don't hit it as often as they should, and the organization is not as united. And that was a very interesting observation for me, at least.
Thanks, Reza, for that. Well, hey, we are at the top of the hour here, so we are going to wrap up. So as I promised, or threatened, depends on how you want to look at this, as we did have a donation to our charity partner, jack.org. And as I do when that happens, I do something that goes like this. Nice donation by you. Jack.org says, thank you. You are awesome, Karina Ludgate. Nice donation by you. There we go. Thanks for sticking around for that. So quickly here, Maryam, why don't you close our show for today?
Thank you so much, Colin. Thanks to everyone. Really appreciate your presence and the dialogue that we had. I would like to, thank our guests, Vivian, Shelley, and Nicole, and definitely check out their website, as I believe Shelley and Nicole, you're hiring, right? Okay, yeah, definitely check it out. They're hiring for their amazing organization. And thanks to my amazing co-hosts, Colin and Reza, we're going to be here next week, right, for Vancouver Startup Week at 12:30. It's going to be different. It's going to be on Hopin. So I believe we're going to share all that information with you via LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. So stay tuned. Thank you so much,
See
everyone.
you guys next
Thanks so
week.
much. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Bye.